And now, a Native Podcast with Matt and Zach. All right, guys, and welcome to Native Podcast today. We have an interview with Bryan Begay. This is a connection between Matt. This is one of your good friends. So I don't know if you want to go ahead and introduce him or let Bryan take the stage.
I
I don't know how that
I
works.
think I'll let Bryan just kind of introduce himself and who he is and some details about himself.
Hi, my name is Bryan Begay. I I grew up in Kingman, Arizona. I'm a part of the Navajo Nation or Diné. We've always been taught to introduce ourselves Navajo, so I'll just do that for you. Yate, She Bryan Begay Yenishye, Tatnasan initially, Tutsuni Butcheshin, Setiskish Dash Che, Tachibi Dashanella. That's just me putting out there my maternal, paternal, and my grandparents' clans out there. If anybody's wondering. I've met a lot of people that way. They're like, "Oh, you're my relative," and yeah,
Right.
it's pretty interesting. I think. Don't quote me on what clan means. I know there's like Tangle Water and Big Water and stuff, different clans for different areas, but
Right. You know
yeah.
yours and what's you. It's not like
Mm.
Matt. Matt uses Bumble to find his family. That's
No, real quick, since we're doing this kind of introduction, I'll let Zach kind of introduce himself too, because you're a guest and but I'm Oglala Lakota, and Bryan probably knows that. And I actually met a cousin of mine in South Dakota on Bumble. So for the viewers out there, when you're traveling in your home tribal lands, be real careful about who you talk with. He might be a cousin.
right. No, exactly. No, it's that's funny. Actually, it was funny that we had that experience with Matt. But no, I'm Little Shell Blackfoot here from Montana. Just so you're aware, our viewers are aware, if you're tuning into this episode for the first time. Me and Matt have, we met at Oregon State. And I think that's where he met you as well, right? You were going to school at Oregon State as well. I don't think our paths crossed.
Probably. I don't think it did. Yeah, we met in Oregon State. I went to OSU from 2018 to 2021.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was 2013 to 2015 was when I was there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually started like it was kind of like a graduate like study hall type thing at the native longhouse. And
Right.
Yeah,
and it was I think it was through your roommate, Bryan, that I like met you.
yeah.
And then we just kind of, I don't know, from there. And then Bobby met my or he met Bryan met my roommate Bobby, and like we just kind of ended up, kind of doing things together outdoors and had a lot of
Hanging
fun.
out. Yeah, I was unhoused for a while, so I couch surfed at their place for about a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Bryan had a corner living room chair with like a TV stand tray. That was his little home for a minute.
Dude, that was
yeah.
more of ours though. Like Mark had that one where he was in like a closet. Like you'd open up the pantry in the like this was like yeah, but it was weird because it had a closet in there. So it was like labeled a bedroom on the like listing, but it was like basically the food pantry, that's how big it was. And that was his room. And then someone had like a garage. Yeah, Corvegas is rough. Um, but no, I mean that it's still kind of cool, Corvallis. I mean, I like it. It was a cool college town, don't get me wrong. But so that you went to school there. I know you went and did you did education elsewhere as well. What
Yeah.
like what inspired you? What got you into it? What kind of set you down this path, I guess?
Yeah. I'd have to go all the way back to high school for that.
Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, I went to school in Kingman High School. I grew up in Kingman, Arizona my whole life. The reason why my family set down roots here was my dad worked for the Bureau of Indian Affairs as
Okay.
like a rangeland manager, resource manager down in Valentine, Arizona. Kingman, Arizona was the closest area, I guess, ideal for raising a family. And he worked with the Havasupai and the Wallapai tribes.
Oh, cool.
Um, so I grew up around this area and just taught me how to. He liked the outdoors and the resource himself.
Yeah.
Um, Took me out fishing, hiking. Some of my earliest memories, I remember being that in outdoors and enjoying it. And I remember the local office of the Bureau of Land Management came to Kingman High School and talked to us about a career in natural resources. And already I'd been kind of thinking about what I was going to do in my future. And I was thinking, I remember I was a child and I wanted to become a marine biologist.
Okay.
And then that warped into me becoming maybe potentially thinking about hydrology or becoming a hydrologist. And I think my sophomore year of high school. But then when they came on, they started talking about cool stuff they're doing. I wanted to do that. And I started looking at colleges and stuff. And I really liked Flagstaff, Arizona. So I looked at their programs, and forestry seemed like it would be the ticket for me.
Right.
Looked up their prerequisites, figured I didn't probably have to go to Northern Arizona University right away. So I went to Yavapai College, which is by a lot of the tribal areas in Prescott, Arizona, for the Yavapai tribes. And I got my associate's of arts there. And then I went to Northern Arizona University to go to the School of Forestry. And I graduated with a bachelor's of science in forestry and a minor in biology and a certificate in wildlife ecology management, because when I was there, I really liked the idea of working in the forest, but then I found out you can actually work with wildlife and specialize in it. And I
Wow.
thought that was rad. So I went down that route, got a job, and it worked for the Forest Service, working with wildlife. And then I knew that what I wanted to become was a wildlife biologist. And I had the training or the knowledge, but I could always take it to the next level, especially because I knew that being a wildlife biologist meant a lot of things, and doing work with computer spatial science analysis, geospatial information sciences, stuff that I dabbled in my undergrad, I really wanted to learn more about, and I applied. Specifically, there was a mentor that I had, Sarah Hoagland, and she reached out to me when I was living in Flagstaff after I graduated about an opportunity for scholarships at Oregon State University for an accelerated master's program. And I applied for it, got in, started doing the program for spatial science and analysis, met my advisor, and my advisor get, gave me an opportunity for changing that MF, Master of Forestry, into a Master's of Science with a project. So I stayed on longer and I graduated 2021, and I've been working ever since.
Oh, wow. That's really
Yeah.
cool. That's a cool journey. No, it really is, especially because you even use the tribe, you went to the tribal college as like part of like knowing that, hey, yeah, like I'm going to need my like not the associate stuff, but the
Oh,
credits, right? You
yeah.
there?
I don't know if I'd call it tribal college. It's more like just like a community college,
Oh, okay.
but yeah.
The area. Okay. But still, that's like, I mean, a lot of kids do that in Corvallis where they go to Lindvet, and that's what my brother did.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
and
Pretty
Zach,
much.
what Zach's hitting at is there's a tribal presence, and so there's going to be native students at that college, like
Oh
most
yeah.
area, right? So that's one of those ones that have the higher, numbers of native students.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's really,
Brian, can you just a little bit explain the geospatial analysis part of forestry? Because some of the viewers might not know exactly what that is.
Oh, that's kind of dabbling into what my master's was in about spatial science, spatial being like space and geographical information systems. They call it GIS, but essentially you have software that will look at maps, points of references, and you can manipulate it, and you can, if you have a project, let's say you have polygons and shapes, lines. You can do rudimentary processing, and essentially the best way you could explain it is Google Maps.
okay.
There's a Google Map Pro that I've used where you can start doing measurements and stuff and doing analysis. You could keep taking it a step farther, and do statistical analysis, import more like light detection and ranging LiDAR. You can add that into it. Um,
Wow.
a pretty cool way to assess and analyze things, specifically if you're dealing with a resource like the national forests and you have a project, you'd want to know what the boundaries are, or you might want to look at aerial imagery of stand of trees, or you might want to delineate something. All kinds of resources are out there for people to find that out. And there's a whole field for that.
Right. Well, and then you get into like what you're saying is like you can understand the forest better by having that data and like how you manipulate. So if this happens, this is how we know if fires keep coming. This is how we know.
Yeah, it's a
Like
powerful tool, especially there's a lot of research in fire about how they're using infrared
yeah.
unmanned air systems like drones to look through smoke to get fires out there.
No, we talked to a guy at Gathering Nations Powwow last year who he does work like that with the
Yeah.
drone with the Forest Service and with he's a tribally owned company actually
Oh,
that was doing that. Yeah, I don't know what happened to it. Like he was like, I'm gonna follow up with you. And I was like, okay, because we do marketing too, right?
I
So
remember.
uh,
we specialize in that. And he was like, yeah, we need that. And I was like, okay, nothing. No, remember him?
Yeah, I do. And like he never contacted us. He was so excited too, like native marketing company, and just came up to me and Zach.
Yeah, no, it was super stoked. And it was cool. I mean, when you think about like where we're at in the forest and in us as native people, I mean, we've been in the forest, we've been in the land, we've been working with it forever. You see native like fire jumpers, native firefighting teams, and they've been there since day one, because they've been fighting the fire since day one. So it only makes sense that you would fall into a position like this, that you'd follow in your father's footsteps, but that probably comes from a lineage of that nature of being connected to it like we are. I mean, it's so weird
yeah,
when you talk to non-natives about that connectiveness to nature. It's like, now I see that dog as an equal because it's a life form, but I know I'm better than it and how I can use it, but I'm going to still respect it because it's a life form. It's a weird concept.
it's I've had trouble trying to convey that same thought
Mhm.
notions about because my parents grew up traditional Navajo. Well, at least I was raised traditional Navajo. I didn't go to church or anything like that. And we would go we would go back to the reservation when my grandparents lived in Tuba City, Arizona a lot. And they'd have sings with medicine men and stuff, and you get to be a part of that. And there'd be Yebiche ceremony where they'd have medicine men go out and they do ceremonies and beauty away and enemy away ceremonies during the Western Navajo Nation Fair, being around that. But when you come into conflict or if there's something happening, like let's say I was a kid and I woke up with nightmares, I'd wake up and then my parents would smoke up and they'd give me like a bitter water drink and I'd go outside, you pray to with corn pollen towards direction, and then you'd pray for um, whatever. I asked my mom, like, what the heck am I even praying for? You're like, just whatever you want, you know? But
Yeah.
that bled into a lot of my values in regards to the outdoors. My parents talked a lot about, at least my dad and my mom did, about how it being something that's sacred. And there's always like a respect for it,
Right.
which I thought was always kind of normal growing up, but not really, I guess, when I talk to a lot of people about it. And yeah, I feel like I have a really good relationship with the environment, and I think a lot of that came from my upbringing.
Yeah. No, it's wild. No, it's totally wild because like it's weird because like you sometimes can almost relate to the like that crazy hunter person that's out there, that's like, I'll shoot anything, I'll shoot deer, I'll shoot squirrels, I'll shoot that. And you're like,
Yeah,
because there's that conservationist in them. But then there's that like, we're not that close, but I can relate to you. But like that's it. Like what you're saying is that's who gets it. Like in my opinion, when you have those conversations, that's the only people I've ever really have kind of understood that connectedness, the understanding that we're all the beings are connected, and we've been that way. And other cultures, it's not that way. So like, yeah, growing up in it, like I grew up in a
Yeah.
Catholic family. I went to Catholic school my whole life. So
Mhm.
definitely it's a interesting time to do all that, right? Where you're like, I'm native, I'm being taught by my family I'm native, but I'm going to this school and you're being taught this, you're being taught these histories. The land in the West was just given to the, basically white folk, and like that didn't happen. Like, I know better than that. And then you compare the two, and then you add that even into just to like everything we've done, because like these societies, like we've managed the forest, like you're saying, like we've done that for thousands of years. Like we've lived off this land.
Yeah, and
Here
I
we
think
are, here we are doing it today.
we're still doing it, and I think it's interesting, like with Brian's work, you
Yeah.
know, or as Brian probably knows, with the like Northern California, they're taking knowledge of prescribed burns and like implementing it now in forestry in a lot of places, of like using this traditional knowledge to burn the underbrush to prevent more severe wildfires. And that's like a traditional knowledge that's like blending with science. And like I think
Yeah. The
Brian,
traditional ecological knowledge.
yeah, TEK. And I think Brian's a good example of blending the two, like just with what he does and who he is.
Yeah. No,
And so,
exactly.
Did you know there's a new native apparel company?
no, I did not.
It's called Shop LS 574, named after the 574 federal tribes and the Little Shell descendancy of its founders.
Wow, that's really cool, man.
It is. It is becoming a spot to order native apparel by and for natives, working with native designers and teams to help best represent Indian country.
That's awesome, dude.
For sure. Now make sure to go pick up some A Native podcast swag as well as other native gear while shopping at shopls574.com.
Oh, yeah. And do not forget to use code ANP10 to save on your next order.
That's ANP10. Hey Matt, did you know there's a tribally owned net company?
No, I did not.
Not only are they tribally owned, but Blue Ribbon Nets also creates totally sustainable products. With Blue Ribbon Nets, not only are you getting quality nets, but even eco-friendly ones as well.
That's awesome, dude.
It sure is indeed. Make sure to use code RUGAROO10 on your next Blue Ribbon Net order to save. Again, the code is RUGAROO10, RUGARU10.
I am definitely getting a blue ribbon net now.
Tune in every Tuesday to hear your favorite native podcast.
That's right. A Native Podcast has new episodes every week, ranging from boarding schools to Indian child welfare.
Not only that, but we have Indian country covered from Maine to California and Florida to Alaska, Hopi to Blackfeet and Choctaw to Tlingit, and all those Crees in between.
And all you other natives and non-natives out there, we want to remind you to tune in this Tuesday to A Native Podcast.
Is your res runner in need of new lights? Well, look no further than our friends at Oxteo, an industry leader in LED lights. Make sure to use code RUGAROO on your next set of lights. That's RUGARU.
Well, and you did work with the spotted owl too?
Yeah. My
So-
first, well, my first official position with the Forest Service, I did work with the northern spotted owl. I ended up taking a position near Klamath Falls or in the Fremont Wainua National Forest as a biological science technician. And they were doing a lot of monitoring and biological surveys for the spotted owl in that area. And that was honestly amazing. Initially, a bit of hesitancy on my side because for Navajos, owls are like a bad
Right.
thing.
Same with the Lakotas, Brian.
Yeah,
It means death, right? When you encounter an owl.
it's just like a bad omen. Could mean a number of things. I I've always been hesitant to take it because my parents would be strongly
Right.
against owls up being outside, but I was always more inquisitive or like a biologist at heart as a kid. And I remember the first time I was out because you'd have to drive out at night and then you'd have these, they call them fox crows collars, but you'd go to these stations and then you'd call for these 10-minute clips of a spotted owl, and it would pause and you'd listen. And then if you heard an owl, then you would uh, mark that down with direction, the distance, species. But sometimes there would be an owl that flew over your head, and you have no way of knowing if it was a sensitive or endangered species at all. And
Oh,
then a
oh
lot of
wow.
times they caution you to be safe about these things, but this particular owl was pretty close to the road, and I got my flashlight, my radio, and my GPS and stuff, and you'd hike out in the woods at night, and I probably got 50 meters away from the road before I turned back. But I remember I was walking in the woods thinking, what the heck am I doing? Like, it felt like this weird, bad feeling about like being raised that owls are bad. What am I really doing the right thing? But I immediately was just like, no, this is cool. And then I just kept walking, and I didn't find the owl, but I came back thinking like that was just a cool experience, and I just love to have more of that. And thankfully I did.
Right. No, that is really cool. What other, I guess, cool projects like that have you worked on?
Yeah, the first project I got attached to was with um, the Wildlife Society. It's probably the premier wildlife professional society for the for wildlife professionals. And being a part of that club in Northern Arizona University was really great because they give you a lot of good opportunities to help. For example, I did black-footed ferret surveys near Sligman, Arizona for Arizona Game and Fish. I've helped look for pronghorns when they're had the helicopter out and they're driving around trying to get,
Oh wow.
I don't know, information what they're doing. You just sit out there with binoculars and stuff. And there's an opportunity that came up with a program called, I think it was the Native American Student Professional Development Program, and it was a partnership with the Forest Service and Native American tribes. Students can apply for it, and they could get sent on research assistantships across the nation. And one of them that I was split between two projects. One was working with bats and sharp-tailed grouse in uh, Upper Peninsula of Michigan and Wisconsin, and another one was doing work with, I believe it was wolverines for the Blackfoot for the Blackfeet
Like up in Glacier.
Nation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I chose not to do the Wolverine research, but I went to Michigan, and out of there was projects going on with the Northern Research Station near Rhineland, Wisconsin, and they were doing work with, it's called the North American Bat NABAT protocol, where you would go out these grids and you set up. They call them ARUs, but they're essentially acoustic recording devices that can pick up bat presence, species, if you're lucky, or you can read the spectrogram correctly and you have for someone they can identify it. But we were also put like suction cups on the truck, and we would listen to bats while we drive around routes and stuff at night. And during the day, we would set out detectors. So that was really good experience, I think, going out in the Ottawa National Forest. And then that was the first half of the season. The later half, I drove to Wisconsin for a different project in an area called the Moco Barrens. It was like it's like a research forest, and it's this really unique habitat with, it's just different because that whole area has glaciation, and it's flat, and there's a lot of logging that happened historically, so it's kind of like this blanket of trees. But this area kind of had almost like it's not necessarily grassland, but it's really interesting shrubland. There's a cool mix of plant diversity, and there were sharp-tailed grouse there that they were looking to do habitat restoration in, and they were doing some studies on what kind of plants are out there. So I helped out with that project.
No, cool.
Yeah. So then I came back, and then I think that helped me get my position in Klamath Falls working with the spotted owl.
Nice, nice. And now you're
Yeah.
out in Arizona now, yeah. You're
Yeah, I'm out in Arizona now. I graduated from OSU, and I went and worked for a consulting firm called Turnstone Environmental Consultants, where I did more spotted owl work. This is a private firm, and I worked in Southern Oregon, near Medford a lot, and I worked primarily on private timber company lands and Bureau of Land Management land. And then there was an opportunity for me to work with marbled murrelets. It's an endangered, um, threatened. I believe it's threatened right now. One of the spotted owls for sure endangered. I mean, there's just like the Endangered Species Act that happens, and you have different listings for animals, but they're a shorebird that will um, come in when they're breeding, mainly around June to August, and they primarily nest on old growth forests, and old growth forests are in short supply in the Pacific Northwest. So, for one, once they're out on the ocean, they're very vulnerable to fishing nets, and then they only have one probably one egg that probably hatches, one or two, and they fly in early in the morning from the ocean, and you have to look up in the sky for 2 hours, 45 minutes before sunrise, and an hour and 25 minutes, I believe, after sunrise, just looking for this bird. And sometimes it'll just be like a fly over. What was that? I don't know. But a lot of times you just have to listen and get really familiar with bird calls, and just have like an intimate experience with the forest, listening and looking for this cryptid creature.
Once you find them, you kind of know after that.
Yeah. Uh,
Where you're like, all right, that's
I mean, I would you would listen for them, and I mean, to this day, if I hear them, I kind of tense up. Or there's a
oh
lot
yeah.
of birds that kind of sound like the marbled murrelet, because it's like it's like a weird keer sound, and it's like a shorebird out in the middle of the woods, which is very unique and distinct. But a lot of woodpeckers or other birds can make noises that are kind of similar. But you just have to have experience with it. And that was an amazing experience I had. I was working up, doing surveys in the Tillamook State Forest
Hmm.
and other areas, private timber forests near Astoria and Hamlet, Oregon, and near Bay City, Oregon was where I was living out of that area. But that was fun as well. Like I really enjoyed that field.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure too, because some of those private spots, like there's good private land out there. So like you get some neat spots where you're like, oh wow, that's pretty, or that's a nice view.
Yeah,
Kind of
and there's a lot of timber company land out there. You know that they're trying to make money, and there's been a lot of stories from coworkers about how they heard a bird, but just because you hear a bird doesn't mean that you can establish that they're actually nesting there, that they're occupying that area, and sometimes you just can't find the bird, and they'll come back the next year and it'll be logged. So stuff like that happens. Um,
don't care.
yeah.
Yeah, Brian, I didn't realize you'd done all that other work in the Great Lakes region and some of these other like and all over Oregon. Really, you were in like all regions of Oregon at one time.
Yeah.
You also, if I remember correctly, worked in Siuslaw Forest and then
Yeah, I worked the longest in the Siuslaw National Forest. I got a position at the Pacific Northwest Research Station, where they're doing the biggest acoustic project in the world, where they have these acoustic detectors. They call them ARUs, but it means autonomous recording unit, and they put them out all the way from California, Oregon, and Washington, and they will listen passively to monitor for species of interest. And there's northern spotted owl all over this matrix of land, and there's some controversy with doing callback surveys, or what I told you about, because you get the caller out, and for one, you're agitating the bird. You might pull off a nest, and there's another, I guess, invasive species called the barred owl that is really taking over the habitat of the northern spotted owl. Mainly, endemic to eastern side, but they've came over to the west, and they are they're generalist species that they're bigger, they can eat more things, and they're just out competing the northern spotted owl that mainly forages on red tree voles and flying squirrels, and they're just not as aggressive. And when you make that call out in the woods, barred owls will come and attack me, or they'll attack the recorder, swoop down at you. And if there is a northern spotted owl that responds back to your calling, then that means that you're opening it up for aggressive behavior from a species that's competing with it. And that led to researchers using this passive monitoring technique of putting recorders out there. We put them out during the day, which is nice because you don't at night, and then it records for at least 6 weeks. You pick it back up, and then you bring it back to the lab, and you have validation people that will listen to the audio. And I thankfully got the opportunity to work over the winter with the validation crew. What they do is that you have millions of hours of recordings of all types of animal species out there, and like how do you parse through all of that to get to the owl? And they put it through a AI called a convolutional neural network. They call it the CNN, and it was developed with a lot of help from a lot of great minds. They put this recording information there, and it's filtered into this black box. You couldn't ask me how it works because I don't know, but it goes through that, and then it tells you with a degree of certainty if this is like 99% spotted owl, and it goes down, 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 down. And a lot of times it could be dogs. I've had trucks out there that have like really heavy bass, and on the spectrogram where you're reading this on the computer program that we use to look at them and validate it, because you have to have humans to listen to it and then say for certain that that might be an owl. You're looking for
Right.
what the cadence of the calls are, what the frequency is, um, investigating to see if it actually is, because it's really important if you actually do get an owl that for certain you can say, yeah, we have an owl out there. And I think it's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. No, I mean, that sounds fun. It
Yeah.
definitely, like you're more into it. Like owls are kind of one of those to me species. Like I've seen them quite a few times in passing. Me and Mark had an encounter. We were in Iceland last summer. There was one that just like flew in front of the car, which was like kind of wild at the time. Like the timing of it was wild. And then like just on different drives I've seen some. And then we had a great horned owl fly into a window at our house. uh
Wow.
Oh,
Died because like it was like his big square window, and then like across the room it was the kitchen. Across the room there was another window, so I think it thought you could like fly through.
Yeah.
Yes. Boom. And the thing was 6 feet long, the wings. And I mean, they got a few of our cats over the years, so at least we got one, right? No, I'm just kidding. But we actually ended up putting it and giving it to my grandpa, who gave it to, he gave it to someone for beating.
Okay.
Well, definitely, he got rid of it traditionally, I guess. He got rid of it the traditional way.
Yeah. I, that's uh yeah, there's a pair of great horned owls outside of my where I'm living at right now. So I think that's like the coolest thing ever.
Oh, they're cool. They're really
Yeah.
cool.
Like for me, it's just if there's an apex predator out there, that means there's enough, I guess, habitat, structure, forage, animals for it to even eat.
Right.
Um, it's just an indicator to me that the landscape could support owls. And I think it's really cool to just hear them out there and listen to them. But yeah, they'll kill cats and stuff. They get big, and um, I think they're just fascinating.
Yeah. No, they're really cool animals. I mean, we went hunting last year and had three of them sitting above our tent. And I mean, it wasn't fun then because you're trying to sleep. And like, I swear to
Oh
God,
yeah.
like they would just hoo, hoo, hoo right there and then like fly across
Mhm.
and they go away for a little while and then they'd come back. So it wasn't like a cadence, So it was so
Yeah.
random that you just wake up every time. You're like, this freaking guy. But it's cool. It's always a cool time. I guess I got a couple questions here for you. One being, when you talk about this stuff and you kind of, it sounds like you took like you found different programs for Native Americans, which is good. When I worked for the BLM when I was going to MSU Billings, and I worked as a park ranger at Pompey's Pillar. They had
Oh,
a
cool.
program through Salish Kootenai College, which is a tribal college here in Montana, through Pompey's Pillar, which is it was really cool. Is where Clark signed his name on the Lewis and Clark Trail. So I get what you're saying, and it's really cool that we have those programs. So I guess, is there any advice you may have for anybody out there, kind of maybe trying to take a similar route, working with like the federal government in like these spaces in these sectors that you may have?
Yeah, I think for me, I can't stress enough to get in a professional society. And when you're going to school, the cost for being a part of that is steep. You get the student fee, and then there's so many opportunities that could come up. And for me, that's pretty much how I got my foot in the door with working for a federal agency. And you're just around other people, and then they'll pass around job positions, or if there's people that have opportunities for them, like being Native American, that's just what you can expect to find, hopefully. And more than likely, you probably will. Um, I'm not a part of the society right now because the professional fees are really expensive, but I'd like to join back again um, once I get a professional job. But yeah, get into the society, volunteer a lot. Um, get out there, see if you even like it. I've heard stories about people who go out into the woods, and I talk to them about it, but it's really some of the most tough work that I've ever done. Like, people will go out into the woods on a field day, and then they'll quit because it's like, I got to work in the rain 10, 12 hours a day. Yeah, you do. Like, it's not for everybody, but if you really like it, you're passionate about the outdoors, you want to be outside, I think that's all that really matters.
Right. No, that's definitely, yeah. I remember we had a couple 115-degree days at Pompey's Pillar where you're just out there. Well, I was laying on the rock like that. I was like, I hate
Yeah,
this. No, like, I mean, I didn't hate it. I like being outdoors. So I love the job, don't get me wrong. But when it's that hot, you're like, I hate this.
it's really, it could be just mentally and physically.
And now we would like to take you to our segment, Music on a Native Podcast. This week, Randy Wood, Look How the Stars Shine for You.
Look how the stars shine for you, my one and only you. They're telling you I love you. Look how the stars shine for you, my one and only you. They're telling you I love you. Hey, Look how the stars shine for you, my one and only you. They're telling you I love you. Hey, oh, hey, look how the stars shine for you, my one and only you. They're telling you I love you. Hey, oh, hey, hey. Look how the stars shine for you, my one and only you. They're telling you I love you. Oh God, just for you, babe.
And that was Randy Wood. Look how the stars shine for you.
Just me, I just remember this last field season I was working in Walla Walla, Washington for the Forest Service as well. And there's a lot of days we were out there hiking and there was a heat wave and I'd take with me like a gallon of water, but a lot of time I'd be running across canyons just with like a bucket because I had a bucket doing water work, trying to shield against the sun. And I was hiding in a cave for probably 30 minutes, trying not to like overheat and get heat exhaustion and running down to the river to get like I had a hard hat and just dunked water on my head so I didn't pass out or, you know, feel like crap.
Yeah.
Necessary stuff.
I know, I remember you telling me that story, and it was just like, because Bobby, our friend Bobby, was complaining about a mishap during our elk hunting this year, and I got dropped off, and there's a gate on a road, so I'm walking like miles because he didn't check the maps or something, and so I'm walking, and Brian's like, "That's just a day on the job in forestry."
Yeah, it's nice when you can walk on the road because a lot of time you're not even on the road, you're just bushwhacking it. A lot of times I think the Science Law is probably the craziest area to work with because essentially rainforest and a lot of time I'm just crawling under the brush. Like I gotta take my backpack off and I'm crawling underneath the ground and going over stuff.
Those coastal forests, for the viewers, they're no joke, like how dense and thick.
Well, and I'm sure over there, because my uncle, he worked in the U.S. Forest Service out of Dillon, Montana here. And he was telling me, like, because he used to have to go survey the people, like the homeless people in the forest. I'm sure over there in Oregon, you encounter some just crazy shit like
Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah, tons of that. I've driven up to people that were passing out in the middle of the road. Sometimes this guy, oftentimes you get a map and then you're trying to read it and you're like, maybe we could walk this way up this decommissioned road and you park and there'd be a creepy van and then get out and then talk to them and the guy comes at you, his mustache is green. I don't know, and then he's just like asking us if we want like coffee. And he's obviously like we immediately got up and then like a white baggie fell on the ground and he
Oh,
picked it up, put it in his pocket, and he didn't have any shoelaces on. It's just the tongues are out, and it's just this guy out there that was just getting high and super nice, but you never know what could happen out there.
sure. I'm especially Oregon forests. I am sure you Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes, if there is a God, please.
Mhm. Thankfully, there's been never really had any bad experience. But when I was out in Southern Oregon, I do the owl calls. I don't know if it's because a lot of times, sometimes I don't even tell people that I work with owls because when you're on those old logging towns during the logging wars, where they shut down a lot of logging to protect the spotted owl, they'd kill the owls and put them out in front of the town. And they'd they pop the tires of forester like employee tires and stuff. I hear about the stories and it's wild, but if I'm gassing up my truck, I just tell them I'm out there serving birds or something because a lot of times people would get. I've had it. My coworkers didn't know that, or they forgot I told them about it, and have to hear like an earful from them. Like, why are you trying to save the owls? Like, let them all die and stuff like that. And like, I'm just trying to get gas. Like, I don't really
They
want to get into it.
Oh, but I mean, at the same time, too, it's like as you're saying, it's a apex predator. You're showing that the environment, the natural environment, the indigenous environment is healthy. With
Mm.
those species. Like that's I'm a like I get it with the wolves out here. I'm very much like team wolf because it's like, bro, the wolves were on the prairie. Wait till they can self-sustain on the prairie, and then we can talk about hunting them. But until then, I don't want to hear. Same with the grizzly bear. Like, I don't want to hear it. We're not, you chose to live in the mountains, but they
Yeah,
naturally, like, that's where they went to hide because I say we, but like humanity, especially manifest destiny, that's really what did it. It pushed them away.
and a lot of that, there's no more large carnivores that will keep elk or deer populations healthy. A lot of a lot of the times they'll predate on ranchers, or ranchers will kill. Especially in Arizona, there's a lot of conflict with ranchers and Arizona game fish with the Mexican wolf that they're trying to bring back, and it's a really sounds like it's a really stressful project. Whenever I talk to people, or when I was around the game and fish employees that talked about it, it just seems like there was a lot of turnover from having that conflict. But that's the job of wildlife biologists and working with wildlife is to kind of resolve that conflict and
Yeah,
Well,
try to mitigate it as
for
you can.
for the animals, right? You're standing up for them.
mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
you have
just
to. Well, they can't speak for themselves, so a lot of times you have to advocate for the animals, and
Right.
it's hard to convey why that's valuable because a lot of times people put value in animals monetarily or tangible thing, but it's like intrinsically there's there's always value in having biodiversity and having like that heritage of having wildlife, not only for my kids or future generations, so like they can enjoy it. And there's spotted owls out in the woods. We care enough about life to protect just small mammals, insects, plants. I think it's a very beautiful thing that we have that heritage and legacy that we're working towards.
No, I agree. I like it. I like how you kind of summed it up there because that's true. It's these animals, they do so much. We don't realize it, but really what like they've adapted worldwide. I mean, you take like the pheasant, you take the sage grouse, you take certain birds like that, you take the bison, the water buffalo, all that. How they're similar on these different continents, but they're different in their own ways because they adapted to the climates, they adapted to the other animals and surroundings, all that. So it's crucial that you keep these populations too, because like you say, there's other owls, there's barn owls now infiltrating on their territory, which wasn't natural. So what does that do to the bugs? What does that do to the trees? Because the bug, of what they eat, it's such a domino effect that we don't even understand it. That
Yeah,
it's wild, man.
cascading
Yeah, but
the
that's
effect.
for another
Mhm.
podcast and another episode because we're kind of coming at our time here. Kind of we get into it. We kind of have our like last words. Matt, do you have anything before that? I'll get into Bryan or
Yeah, Brian, I know you touched on Walla Walla a little bit, but did just kind of a last question. Did you work directly with any tribes, or I think you said you did a fish project with the Umatilla, some Umatilla tribal members
Oh
in there.
yeah. Well, um, I was attached to a project that I was hired for, where I was doing environmental DNA sampling, where I go out a lot of the areas, rivers, streams, watersheds, and I would sample it with suction cup with a peristaltic pump, and they were looking for particles of DNA or any information that you can find specifically for Western ridge mussels and lamprey. And lamprey is a very important resource for the tribes down there, and the Forest Service knows that, and the tribes definitely know that. And there probably was a partnership with the um, person that started that project. His name was Eric Merton. He works out of Pendleton, but yeah, those species are on the sensitive list, and it was super cool going down those areas. It's tough work, but I mean, it's super find out if there are lamprey in the area so that they could protect it and monitor that area and with the mussels as well. Um, and whenever I talk with about it, people always brought up the fact that it was um, just important to cultural resource, um, something that should be protected. And I felt like it was really important to do that. I liked it.
nice. No, I saw the lamprey Oregon. They've done quite a few stories on that, and then I saw Naya actually has some lamprey at the Native American Youth and Family Center there in Portland. So yeah, that's kind of the podcast. We kind of wrap it up. We kind of give our guests kind of what we call our final words. We kind of wrap it up here at the end. If there's anything you want to say, promote, talk about, do whatever, feel free. This is your moment to shine. If you have any advice, whatever. Matt sometimes likes to shout out, his baby mamas, his his energy drink.
Um,
You know what I mean? So go ahead.
I think,
I'll leave it to you.
yeah, this is something that keeps popping up, I think, for a lot of wildlife professionals or people that work in outside, but especially with like the TikTok shorts or YouTube shorts. But a lot of people will like feed wildlife, or they'll walk up to them and stuff. Like don't like I think a big part of it is like keeping wildlife wild.
Right.
It's important that wildlife know that um, we're they, then they become dependent on us. They start hanging around us, and that's not natural. That's not normal. And just particularly with deer, they'd come up to me if I'm parked at an area that's popular, and they'll walk up to you. Someone could hit the deer. Millions, probably billions of dollars is probably lost every year. At least hundreds of millions from collisions with deer. And there's a whole problem with that, with overpopulation of deer from the lack of natural predators, particularly in the Midwest and eastern states of the United States. But also, yeah, maybe also consider keeping your cat indoors if you have a cat. I know cats are one of the most prolific hunters out there, and they led to the extinction of multiple animal species, and they'll kill birds, small mammals, insects. So if you have a cat, consider keeping it indoors. It's good for keep the cat inside and keep the dogs inside or in an area that you can supervise them. Maybe put a bell on the cat if you don't want to keep it inside, so that maybe you might alert some birds. But yeah, there's a lot of information out there about how we could better protect wildlife resources. And I think just maybe keeping those things in mind when people look at that stuff online, or if they're wondering if they should keep their cat outside, um, do some more research on it. I've spoken my tidbit about it, but yeah.
Well, I think no, it's good to know. It's good education. I mean, even the bell on the cat is something that's nice. I know my cousin Jared, he's talked about doing like he wants to build a catio. He wants to do all this stuff. He's got to paint the house. He's always like, we're always joking.
Yeah.
He's always like, I want to paint this blue. And I'm like, when we go see it, bud? And
Yeah.
but he's like, I want to build a catio, and because if he wanted to get a cat for the same reason, because he lives in Paradise Valley, Montana, which is
Yeah.
so he really wants, he's like, I don't want to affect the environment. He's like, I don't want to plant fake grass. He goes, I'm leaving the wild grass that my yard is, because
Yeah.
the bees, the flowers, all that. Exactly.
Yeah. And then plant native wildflowers and put out bat boxes and put out birdhouses.
Right.
Shazam.
Oh,
I think it's
honestly,
yeah.
it's helpful. It's what we did as natives on this land back in the day. You think of like the Blackfeet burning the fields. Think of
Mhm.
the farming. I know Diné, you guys farmed a lot of corn down there. Like, it's hard to do in the desert. You figure it out, you make it happen, right? Like, we
Yeah.
do that. We understand this environment, this natural environment, and it's really cool to talk to you, a wildlife biologist, on that today. Matt, any final words?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed listening to Brian's take on, the forestry and what are some things he's worked with, some of the issues, happening in the environment, there's surveys, and it kind of made me think, kind of segue off what you just said, Zach, about how native people like worked with the land, right, to manage the landscape through prescribed burns, through different modes of uh like managing the plants and for the animals. And bison, there's a lot of research right now on how bison, in the plains, their hooves facilitate in grasslands the growth of plants, whereas like cattle's hooves tend to kill the grass and the native. So there's the way their hooves are shaped, they draw out the seeds and facilitate native plant growth. So it just made me think about that, and just the importance of conservation and bringing and revitalizing even some of these landscapes. So
Yeah. No, no, that's awesome.
Interesting.
You see it. You see, I've heard the American Prairie Reserve talked about exactly what Matt was talking about on mine and Mark's podcast, Wandering Ways. We talked about, interviewed them. Bryan, I want to thank you so much for being our first interview. We want to thank our listeners, as always, for tuning in. This was a great one. I'm glad that we had this conversation. It's exciting. We talked to a native wildlife biologist, so now now if you're in the know, now you know.
Yeah.
No,
I
it's
will
all
preface, not a wildlife biologist yet, but I'm in the works of
works.
getting that official title soon, hopefully.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
basically, in my mind, you know more. You've gone down the
Yeah.
path. You've gotten the education. You've done what it takes. You're going to get the title. It sounds like. It sounds like it's up there.
Mhm.
So excited to see that happen. But definitely thank you for being on. Until next time. Bye bye.
I know ballers, I know chiefs, I know riders from the east. I know educated natives down to picket in the streets. Middle fingers to police. Fuck you, we come in peace. I know red skin hippies that be giving me the creeps. I know beauty, I know beach, I know savages and freaks. And I know a couple cousins even bougier than me. No, ain't elite, bougie native, yes indeed. Art exhibit to the club, and we roll it 20 deep. Copper on my neck, gold on my ring. Feather on my hat, skin stitched chin. 100 warriors on my back, they be drumming when I sing. Man, there ain't no way around it.
A Native Podcast is produced by G&G Advertising and Quartz Lake Productions.